Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, also best-selling author, and every single day I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, we have an amazing guest. He was somebody I connected to through a mutual connection here, and wow, this guy is absolutely incredible. I jumped onto his YouTube, I jumped onto his podcast. He has so much great value on both those platforms that any business owner, any entrepreneur should definitely get connected with him and check out that stuff because he has so many great tips on there. He loves helping people. He'll help so many different people, best entrepreneurs out there, increase their sales, increase their revenues, increase their money, and also help them empower others as well. He has sold over $250 million worth of products and over 150,000 customers with over 130 some countries out there. I mean, this guy has done it all. He's held the record for the biggest launch for the internet marketing space. He's an innovator. He's a webinar king. I mean, some of his webinars are world-class. In fact, Zoom, which we're all on right now, something that we didn't think we were going to be on, is a company that contacted him to come and do their webinars and help with their users as well. He's a product creation machine, over 100 some products out there, international speaker, a best-selling author of the book One to Many, a master strategist. So please welcome co-founder and chief strategist officer at Rapid Crush, Mr. Jason FLADLIEN.
Wow, Fong, what an introduction. It makes me sound cooler than I am.
I don't know. You're pretty cool, man. You've done so many different things, and some of the stuff you have out there is absolutely incredible. And I just can't wait to ask you a few questions here and also get to know you a bit more. Now, you weren't born and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to go out there and change the world, help so many different people, do all these product launches." How did you get started? What's your origin story?
Yeah, it's quite a roller coaster of a one. So in my 20, maybe I just turned 20 or almost was turning 21. I was just at a very low point in my life. I was getting panic attacks 3, 4, 5 times a day, severely depressed, a lot of trauma growing up that I hadn't processed or even understood yet. And the only thing that really was any sort of inspiration in my life was music. Believe it or not, like I was rapping in front of audiences since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And so that was kind of the only thing I had going in my life. And I wasn't really focused on it too much because I couldn't. It's getting out of bed in the morning was challenging, right? So I would dabble with it, and I'd kind of dabbled with it since I was about 8 or 9 years old. Never took it seriously, but somebody else that I was starting to work with to do music, he had went and traveled with the Hare Krishnas, and he came back and he was talking a little bit about it. And part of that is being a vegetarian. So one night I get on the internet. I'm like, I want to know more about vegetarianism because I've always been super intellectually curious. So I start reading about that, and then I start, oh, that's that thing that my friend Fran says about Hare Krishna. What's that about? And I start reading that, and something about that got me where I was like, you know what? How miserable my life is at this point in time. I'm willing to try anything. So I started, becoming like a Hare Krishna monk, slowly at first, but over like 4 or 5 or 6 months, I really got into it. And then that switched everything for me. Now I came back to the music with a zeal. Like I went as hard as I possibly could. I just felt like invigorated, just tapping in, mainlining spiritual kind of transcendent energy, if you will. I know this all sounds crazy, but that's how I felt about it. So I went at it, and I really took the music serious. Problem was I was selling a product nobody really wanted, and it took everything I had just to be average. So I was struggling to get it off the ground. So I struggled for the next 4 or 5 years, about 4 years really, to get it off the ground. And I started studying all these things that I could do to improve my chances of getting this record label going and being successful. And then that's when I encountered marketing, and I'm like, ooh, what's this? It was as interesting at first to me as the music always was my muse. And then pretty soon the marketing started to take it over. And then pretty soon that's all I focused on. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to make money online with marketing, funnel that money back into the music business. And that was my grand scheme. But making money online was a lot harder than I had anticipated. So I spent like a year trying to figure that out. Finally, in 2007, I really broke through on that point in time. But at that point in time, it was all about the marketing. The music, I wasn't even doing it anymore. I just became monomaniacally obsessed with just marketing. And I couldn't really do it on my own. So what I ended up doing, because at this point in time, I'd burned through all my finances. I had nothing. I was painting houses just to make ends meet. And I'm like, I got to get out of this job. So I started writing articles for other marketers, ghostwriting them. And I was making an okay amount of money, but it was tedious work. So then one day I said, I'm going to teach people the system of how I can write these articles from scratch very quickly on topics that I previously knew nothing about, and how I was getting paid to do that. So I created a little information product, and then I sold it for $4 measly, and it took off. People bought it and they loved it. And I thought, I could just do this over and over again. So for the next 13 months, that's all I did. I try to make a product a week, believe it or not, following a formula that I designed called one problem, one solution, one sitting products. I'd find one very specific problem, find one very specific solution for it, put it into a product that I could create in a single sitting, where I just sit down with a blank screen, stand up, and had a finished product and sell it at a really low ticket price. And that built me a following. And then from that following, that's when I started experimenting with different things. And one of those things was webinars.
That is absolutely incredible. I mean, for somebody like yourself who is able to take some information and do a deep dive and research and come up with articles and products, that's something that lots of people can't do. I mean, lots of people are sitting there going, hey, I need to create stuff. I need to create stuff. And I'm like, well, how hard is it to create something? You know this stuff. Go and do a video. Go and write something down. Create an article. You know this stuff already. In fact, I hear you talking about it all the time. But you're able to do that with stuff that you don't know anything about. So what's that process? How do you take something that you don't know anything about, break it down, and then write it in a way that sounds and shows that you're smart about it?
Yeah, this is a great one. So when I first started, excuse me, and what we're talking about here is building systems. And I think this is something I've just naturally been able to do it, but it eludes a lot of people. The first article writing system that I wrote, it was laughable. Now, context. Back then, there was a site called Easy Articles, and you could write an article, publish it in this article directory, and put a little bio box at the end of your article that says, for more information, check out my website, kind of a deal. You could publish it, and you could get a lot of traffic for free. Like Google loved Easy Articles. I don't know why, but they did. So everybody wanted to write articles to publish them in Easy Articles, put enough keyword density in there. So, look at a certain keyword phrase that you'd like to get traffic for, write an article around it. So these are very superficial articles. They weren't made to wow anybody or blow anybody's mind. They were search engine food, as I like to call them. So the way that I did that at the time was, I'm like, okay, whatever the topic is, I'm going to go to 3 different sites for research. And so that way I could have a unique article. So I'd get insight and I'd have 3 main points. So here's how all my articles were structured at the time: introduction, 3 main points, outro. So essentially 5 paragraphs. Introduction was almost always the same. It was a template that was fill in the blanks with slight modification. Most of it was like, if you want to learn X, here's what you're going to discover in this article. Specifically, we're going to cover these 3 points. After we go through these 3 points, you should be able to do blank. That was it, right? It's funny because I haven't wrote one of these articles in about 9 years, but I can still remember the template. And then main point 1, we introduce it. We talk about what it is. We support it with 2 subpoints. And then we transition to the next main point, and we do that 3 times. So I could show people, just take 3 different websites, search the same article, content, or topic or idea, scan down the first one. As soon as you see a main point that focuses on the topic, grab that. That's your first main point. Now find 2 subpoints for it. Go to the second site, do the same thing. Go to the third site, do the same thing. And you could whip up these articles very quickly, publish them, and get traffic. Now, here's what's great about systems, Fong, because once we build one, we can build another one on top of it. So what I started doing with my info products, at first I didn't have a system. When I'd create these 111 products, as I called them, I would just sit down and say, you want to know how to do X? Here's the first thing you do. Here's the second thing you do. Here's the third thing you do. Here's the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever, right? Just pure step-by-step. No history lesson, no warm-up, no introduction, nothing. Later on, I started studying more like motivation theory, why people are motivated to do stuff. And I started studying different types of how people best consume information. So I started to build a better model, I felt, for communication, which now the model was, whatever the topic was, here's why it's important, here's what's involved, here's how to use it, and here's what can happen when you use it. So the introduction is essentially like, here's why this is important. So there's a lot of people out there that if they don't know the why, it's hard for them to do the how. So this helps them. And it helps me write, because I just have to talk about 2, 3, 4, 5 reasons why it's important. Here's what's involved. So these are the pieces. So if you think about if you're cooking a meal, right, what are the ingredients? So what's involved here are the major pieces. Now, 80-20 rule states that 20% of your inputs give you 80% of your results, right? So I'm trying to always find those vital few pieces of information that make the most difference. So here's what's involved. These key, critical, vital pieces of information. And then here's how to use them. How to use them is there's only 2 ways you can teach anything. You can teach it step by step, or you can teach it as here's a variety of factors to consider when you do X. So that's all I had to figure out. So whatever was involved, I had to see, how do we use that? We either say, here's the 4 things you need to do, or we say, here are the 4 things you need to be aware of, and here's how you can use them. And so that was like the how. So each of those 4 things then was broken down with, here's why this thing is important, here's what's involved with it, here's how specifically to put it into action, and here's what can happen when you put it into action. And we would do that for each point. And then the conclusion, we would wrap it up. We could say, here's how you can immediately benefit from this the first time you use it. Here's what it can lead to over time. And then here's encouragement for you to go out there and use it. That's the whole system. And so I now, for most of my communication, started to just run it through that. So if it's a report or a free ebook we're going to give away to build leads, that's easy to do. I can just calibrate it down to make it 5, 6, 7 pages and follow that system. If it's a in-depth product, then we go deeper into that system, but the framework is still the same. And then if it's something more massive, we just break it down, and we could teach it over a period of weeks, 1 step per week, and we could still use the same system, but we could go more in depth to it, right? But here was the game changer for me is when I started doing webinars, which has made me more money than anything and has impacted more audience that I reached than anything. I just needed to build a new system essentially for the intro. I need to have an intro that hooked people in, that simultaneously opened them up to be empowered in a way, but also opened them up to invest at the end if we were going to make an offer. And then my content section of my webinar was just that system that I talked about. So I took a portion of that system over there that was purely for content purposes, forklifted it and applied it in a system over here that was more for sales purposes. And that was the edge that I had going in on webinars, is I had an ability to create transformation in a way that most other people didn't. And then I added the sales components to it over time. But it all really started with that first basic system of articles, and then reiterating it to find it more applicable in other circumstances beyond these very superficial search food type of articles. And then from that, taking pieces of it or finding different applications of it. And that's really been the whole foundation of my success, comes from that.
Well, and I would assume now it gets a little bit trickier because there's so much AI out there that people just type in a few words and a whole article comes out.
I love it, actually, right? So, excuse me, there's this concept called noise to signal ratio, right? So needle and haystack, right? The less hay there is and the more needles there are, the easier it is to find one. But the more hay there is and the less needles there are, the harder it is to find one. And so I think we're going to see in AI, we're going to see a lot of 6 and 7 and maybe 7.5 out of 10 content. Guess what that does? That makes people even more desirous for the 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 or the 10 out of 10 content, right? So the more people are pushing out okay stuff, the more demand there should be for the really cutting edge stuff. So I love AI because I don't have to have AI do all the work for me. I can intelligently utilize AI in a way that other people can. I'll give you an example, right? Here's why this is important. Remember, that was the first part of our system. I ask AI, I said, give me 12 reasons you think this is important. And then it spits out 12 and I pick the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still steering the vehicle, if you will, and I'm still driving it to the destination. I've just upgraded the vehicle. I got a Ferrari now. So the AI is my Ferrari, but I'm still driving it and I'm an expert driver.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take it further, I feel, than most other people do. Here's what's involved. Like, if you had to only focus on 8 things when it came to X, what would those 8 things be? So it spits out 8 things. And then from those 8, I pick 3 or I pick 4.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's helping me from that perspective. And that's where I see AI going. Is here's game theory, which is a whole different topic, but game theory basically suggests to me that people are going to take the least path of resistance when it comes to AI. A majority of people are.
Yep.
And so good. We just have to do things above and beyond the majority of people, and we will have an edge. And so I'm really excited about that because people are looking at AI as a way for them to think less and do less. And I'm looking at it AI as a way to think better and do more. And so I believe firmly that AI is only going to make me even more money than I've ever made in my life. And I'm really excited about that prospect. But I'm also of the belief, Fong, that I don't have to predict the future. I just have to be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so however it shakes out, I'm not too attached to the end result of what it will be or how it will be used. I'm open to the idea that if I'm cognitively flexible enough to assess it and see where its strengths and weaknesses are, then I will be able to use it just as good as anybody else does in whatever permutation it comes out in. And so I think, to me, it's exciting, whereas other people are either freaked out of their mind about it, and so they're scared, or they're overvaluing it, which is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you overvalue your workout, like say you do a really light workout and you think, man, I'm really getting my pump on here, I'm really getting excited, really knocking it out, but you're not, then you're still going to be flabby.
That is absolutely incredible. And yeah, lots of people have to kind of take the technology and use it to their advantage and not be afraid of it. Now, you help lots of people with webinars. You give out the system, you teach the system, but you still have this specialty in your webinars because, as Kevin Harrington has said, you have some of the most world-class, incredible webinars out there. So what makes your webinars a class above the rest?
Good question, right? Oh, geez, where to begin? What I do, so in my book, I teach everything. Like this book, One to Many, was a derivative of a $5,000 in-person workshop that I did. So we did a workshop that was $5,000 a person, 63 seats in the room, I think, something like that. Whatever it was sold out. And it's a who's who. So we recorded that product. We turned it into a product called Genius Webinars. And if you actually had that product and you looked in the audience, you'd say, oh my God, these are some A-listers that are in the room. They all paid me money, $5K, to be in there. So we took that, we turned it into a $1,500 product that we sold the recordings of. And then from that, I took it and put it in this book. So this book is literally the same framework that I taught in a $5,000 workshop. I've helped a lot of people. I've had more than one. I've had multiple 9-figure successes who followed my webinar formula, which is laid completely bare in the book. But I think where I take it even further, there's two things that I think, and who knows, right? This is just me guessing here. But I think there's 2 things. What I do underneath the surface, I think, is that extra little flavor that people miss. So everything I do in a webinar is geared and designed towards creating a paradigm shift. I want somebody who comes into a webinar. Everybody who comes into a webinar that's looking to buy something has a limited belief that they're trying to unlimit. So the person that wants to start a business, they're looking for an opportunity, but really what's holding them back is they think that they're going to fail. They think that people are going to take advantage of them. They're afraid it's going to be too much. They're going to feel ashamed and embarrassed and humiliated when their friends and family said, see, who are you to think that you could go out there and start a business, right? Those are the things that stop them. It's not the price. It's not the offer. None of that other stuff, right? And so I know I have to unlimit those things that will hold them back, their excuses. And so I can't just come right out and say that though. And I can't just a paradigm shift in how you design it, or what I call the aha moment, where somebody says, oh my God, this changes everything. I can no longer go back to who I was. That I've never really figured out how to teach. I think a lot of that happens as a byproduct of following my system, whether you know it or not. It's kind of like electricity. Whether you know how it works or not, you flip a light switch on and light comes on. So I think a lot of people pick that up. But I have deliberately thought about it forever. I obsess over that. How do we do that? How do we change behavior? How do we get somebody to look at the world from a new perspective, to get new insights, to get new results? How do we transform, not just inform, right? So these are the things that I'm doing in my webinars beneath the surface. Now, the other thing that I do is I just also try to get the best offer possible. Just a one-of-a-kind offer. So here's how I'm going to frame this, just to try to import to the audience how good I am at this, because I've made it such a priority. So Alex Hormozi, he's right now wrote a book called $100 million Offers, right? And book sold over 400,000 copies last I checked. One of the hottest books out there right now, and he's one of the hottest properties on the internet in the business world. I'm the most quoted person in the book on $100 million offers. And Alex recently reached out to me for a new thing that he's launching. And he says, you're the best in the world that I know on constructing offers, Jason. So he reached out to me and wanted me to consult with him. So that's where the context of what I'm going to teach you now, or talk about now, is coming from. So if the best-selling book of all time on how to construct offers, the author of it says I'm the best that he knows, right? I kind of know a thing or two I feel about this stuff. So what I try to do is stack the deck in my favor before I ever write one word of a webinar or create one slide. I try to create an irresistible offer that's so good that you would be dumb if you didn't buy it, if you were who I had in mind when I created the offer. And so we will spend 80% of our time on the offer and only 20% on the webinar itself. And so I've learned some things over the years about how to construct offers that just, it's like this. The webinar may be the ingredients that you're cooking the meal with, but if you're not a great chef, you're still not going to create a world-class meal. Right. So it's like, I'm the chef, I'm creating the offer. The offer is the ingredients I'm cooking with, and I'm the chef that's constructing the ingredients together in a certain way. I don't know if that metaphor makes sense or not. Hopefully it does. And so I have discovered, and here's where I learned this from. We would see other webinar presenters go out there, and their webinars were not very good, like 5 out of 10 at best, and they would still sell a whole bunch. So I said, there's something more important than the webinar here that's allowing this to occur. And I would just figure out, well, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? And I just came to the conclusion it has to be the offer. And so I'll give you a great example. So here's an offer we made one time. We were promoting somebody else's product. So we were an affiliate. This product was a $5,000 product. We got paid $2,500 every time we made the sale. Instead of using their marketing material, their funnels, whatever they had, we created our own from scratch. So this already innovates us and puts us in a different category than anybody else, which is good. From a positioning standpoint, that's important. More important, though, was this was how to start an Amazon business. And this was in 2015, before it was even cool to start one of these things. And so the market was still becoming only aware of the power of what it could look like to start an Amazon business. And Amazon wasn't saturated yet. So there was a lot of opportunity there. And the course we were promoted had your normal money back guarantee, which is great. But what we realized was the problem with that is if I go and I order a whole bunch of inventory, have it shipped over from China, and it doesn't sell, yeah, I can get my money back from the course, but I can't get my money back from China, right? I can't call Amazon and say, man, I can't sell these products. Just write me a check. Right. So if I'm in the consumer's position of deciding to purchase this product or not, the real risk isn't will the product will what I buy work or not, and can I get my money back? The real risk is what if I spend all this money in my business and I don't recoup? So I could lose $5,000, $10,000 above and beyond what the course price tag is. So we, as an affiliate, ourselves created a guarantee, and it was a better than money back guarantee. And it essentially said, if you do X, Y, and Z, and you can document that you did X, Y, and Z, and you don't make this amount of money or sell this amount of product in this period of time, right? then we will buy your business from you at retail price.
Wow.
Meaning we will buy all your inventory from you at retail price as if you sold it on Amazon to everybody. And this was an irresistible offer because the guarantee essentially went above and beyond. Like, if you can't make this work, we will buy it from you and we will make it work. That's how confident we were in this. And then we took it to the extra step where I went down, actually my business partner went down, and he opened up a new bank account, put $1 million in it, and then had our banker sign a letter that we could show on the webinar that said, if you want to verify the amount of money that's in this account, you can call me and I will tell you what the balance is. So that way, when I said, this is how serious we are about this, I said, listen, I have a war chest here. If I have to buy every one of your businesses because you can't make it work, I'm prepared to do so. And this was an offer that nobody else could match. And a big component of a killer offer is the reversal of risk. And so that was one of the ways in which we were able just to trounce everybody else. We sold $9.8 million of that product in 8 days. Combining that offer with, the webinar and everything else, second place in that contest, because there was 5,000 affiliates promoting this thing. It was the hottest offer at the time, and every affiliate wanted a $2,500 commission on a sale. Second place sold $1.9 million. So we outsold them by $8 million.
Wow.
That's the difference. We had an offer that was a cut above the rest. Now, there was other parts of the things that we did in that offer, and we do this in other offers as well. I'll give you an example. I'll go to a third-party vendor. Mostly we do this with SaaS products, but it works with a lot of other products too. I really like SaaS though, because say you got a piece of software and I'm selling information. I'm not going to create the software. If I did create the software, it wouldn't be as good as the software you've already created. Now, let's say your software retails for $99 a month. So if I could get 6 months of that software, that would be a legitimate retail value of essentially like $594 or whatever the thing is, right? Almost $600. Mm-hmm. And everybody would agree with that. It's not a made-up value we pulled from thin air, right? It's go to this website, look, here's the $99 version of that. So if I can make a deal with this third-party vendor, this SaaS software publisher, and say, hey, listen, can I get 6 months of your thing that you sell for $99 a month for free to give to my people? Can I do that, right? And why would a software provider even consider or entertain that idea? I'll tell you why. Because I thought about this, and this is how I would approach them. I'd say to them something along the following: how much does it cost you to acquire a customer in advertising, a cold customer? Mostly they wouldn't know. But when we went back and forth with it, they would agree it would cost usually between $50 and $200 for them to produce a new sign-up and a new customer of their software. And then the second thing I would ask them was essentially, what's the additional cost to your overhead for taking on a new user? And the answer for SaaS is zero, pretty much. Like, there's almost no additional cost because most of the cost of the software is sunk. Right. And it was in the development, it was in the coding of it. The support team, they could handle another 5, 10, 15, or 1,000 users. They don't have to hire new support, right? And even if they did, it would be minimum. So my appeal to the software creator was, I'm going to give you leads that bought a $5,000 product. So they're going to be the best leads you can ever get. You don't have to pay anything for them. So you don't have to pay Facebook or Google for secondary leads. I'm going to give you primary leads and they're free to you. And your cost to support them is negligible. And the hope is they will upgrade. So a lot of software has like an ABC level, like a standard, a gold, and a platinum, or what have you, right? So I said, our goal is to get them, because they have this product that they're buying from us, which we are going to show them how that product combined with the software is going to give them even more advantage. Our goal is to get them to exceed the level of standard, so they have to upgrade. And they'll be happy to upgrade at that point because they're doing so out of profit, not out of pocket. And so this is how you're going to get new customers that are going to pay you. And you're going to get more new customers this way than I think you could in any other way, risk-free. And so, if six different SaaS providers sell essentially the same type of software, because they usually do, right? You go to any market and there's going to be like 10 or 15 different software providers out there that kind of do somewhat of the same thing. I'm going to get one of them. I'm going to get one of them that I can make that deal with. And, if I'm selling think about this, if I'm selling a $1,500 info product, and I can give you a $600 software for free in that, I'm really only selling a $900 product. And that's insane, because now it's like, now the deal becomes better. Now, if we can do that with a couple different things, very often I try to get my offers to what I'm giving you for free as bonuses and retail value is, I'm giving you $3,000 of actual retail stuff when you buy a $1,500 course or a $2,000 course. You feel what I'm saying here? Like, this is better than free in this instance. And that's what we try to do with our offer. So we get the best parts of the offer really nailed down. So then when we go out there and create the webinar, it's game over. We already know we're coming in with the best offer imaginable. And it makes it so much easier than to create an amazing webinar to demonstrate how awesome that offer is.
Wow, that is incredible. Now, you come up with so many different strategies, so many different what do you call it, ideas, creativity. Do you do a lot of testing, or do you run it through your mind and kind of storyboard what's going to happen and then put it out there, or do you do a lot of testing first?
I mean, we don't do as much testing as we should, but here's why. We like to, here's the MO in our business. We are looking for the greatest thing for our market right now that would give them the greatest advantage possible. And whether we create it, which we do sometimes, whether we promote it as an affiliate, which we do other times, or whether we publish it, which we do as well. We bring it in-house, and then we have like the talent, and we're like the director, like in a movie, right? Or in some cases, we partner, where we're the exclusive marketing partners. So those are the 4 configurations, essentially, of how we go about what's the greatest thing out there. Let's let the most amount of people who could benefit from it know about it. And the challenge with that / opportunity with that is you have to be on the cutting edge. So the things that pop up that give people the most leverage are, the timing is critically important, and there's a window of opportunity that is closing. If you get in before it closes, it's kind of like if you get on the bus before it takes off, you're gonna make it, regardless if you got on first or got on last, right? But if you miss the bus, you're done.
Right.
So we're like, how do we get people in before the bus takes off on this opportunity? So usually we don't have the luxury of testing things because of the nature of how quickly things change in these markets. So we're just getting the best version of that thing in front of as many people as possible so they can take advantage of it before it becomes normalized, or before it becomes generalized, or before the edge gets lost when new people come in. And that's what we try to do. So that doesn't give us the luxury so much of testing. Part of me wishes, I have no regrets in this, but part of me sometimes wishes, I'm like, man, I wish I was like some more of my clients. They get in on one thing and then they just hammer it for like 6 or 7 years. And then these are guys that have like $100 million off of a single webinar. I got a few clients that have done that, right? It's just not in my nature. It's kind of like, when the Mona Lisa was painted, they didn't just say, okay, done, we're never going to paint again, right?
Right.
The artist still has to produce new paintings. And that's kind of how I approach it. So it's exciting and it's exhilarating to me. The cost of that is I don't build things that scale as easily as other people do. So if I was doing that, then I would be testing more. But a lot of this is just we're very flexible. We put something out there, we see what happens, and then we adjust. So I follow this formula that I've created that says attempt, observe, adjust. Attempt something, observe what happens, and then adjust. And then attempt it again, observe what happens, and then adjust. And so I want to get it in front of an audience to see how they interact with it as fast as possible, knowing that I will probably get as much wrong as I get right initially, but then I make adjustments. I say, oh, this is the thing that they really resonated with, so I need more of that. And this is the thing that I thought was important to them that they just did not seem to care one hoot about. So we can just completely pull the focus of that out of this whole thing so it doesn't take up any more space. And so that's kind of the attitude that we're approaching things with.
So does that usually happen from webinar to webinar, or actually live within that webinar where you're doing your pitch, you're doing your presentation, and then go, whoa, I'm sensing it's not working. I need to swap it out very quickly here.
Yeah, it's both, really. I mean, there's the micro macro. So one of my greatest aha moments, Fong, that I ever had. So here's what a lot of people really like me for is the tactical stuff, which I totally understand. Tactics are easy to get and implement immediately. You can't build a business on tactics, but you can get breakthroughs with tactics. And so my closing is what everybody talks about. Oh, Jason's the best salesman in the world. He can close like nobody else. Man, he's so good at handling objections, et cetera, et cetera. And that came about because early on in my webinar career, it was like 2009. I noticed something. I was selling at the time like $300 products. I was as high as the price point that I feel comfortable doing. And there was like 50 people on this webinar once, and I'm all out of slides. I got nothing more to say, but the chat is kind of active. And I'm thinking, if people are still around hanging out, interacting with me, I wonder if there's things that I can say to them that would help them make a decision. What do I need to say that hasn't been said to them yet? So I started messing around. And my thought was, man, if I sell one more product in the next hour, that's $300. $300 an hour back then was a lot of money for me, right? So I went an hour and I sold 2. I'm like, nice. And now there's like 39 people on the webinar still. And some of them are chatting. So can I sell another one? So then I went another hour and then I sold one more. So soon my 1.5 hour webinars became 4-hour webinars because I could hang out with the audience. And in my mind, I was so narrow-sighted, Fong, because it was like, I'm just making more money. I mean, I'm trading time for dollars. So yeah, of course I am, but I'm making some cash. I don't care. What I didn't realize was I was learning more about how people make decisions, both in my market and in general. And I also started then to develop communication strategies that allowed me to not only know how to close more, but then how to frame things at a higher level. So I don't get this pushback that I would get. I could destroy these objections. I could collapse them. I could do things to get people out of their own way, because a lot of people operate in ways which are incongruent to their goals. Mm-hmm. They want to go out there and change the world, but they have trouble even shooting one video and putting it on the internet, right? It's like those two things are incompatible with each other. They want to make a lot of money, but everybody in their family told them that all rich people are evil. So they're conflicted, right? And so I have to help people reconcile these incongruences, and so that they're not at war with themselves, first of all. And second of all, so they can make clarity. Like most people left on their own devices, they're going to take the path of least resistance, and they're going to play towards the safest outcome in the short term.
Right.
So the safest outcome in the short term is always do nothing, not buy, not take a chance, not risk a single thing. But if you repeat that over a long period of time, it's catastrophic.
Right.
And so we have to help them square up this tendency to do nothing, which is the easiest thing in the world and the safest thing in the short term, with the things they need to grow. So risk is involved. How do they make a decision that's best for them? That's ultimately what we do here. And so when I was doing these webinars and I was selling on them, I learned all sorts of stuff about how people make decisions. And so not only do I put that into the webinar in real time, like we could be selling and I could realize something is going wrong and I would fix it right there in the moment. Mm-hmm. And then we wouldn't do it again the way we did it before. We do it the new way. But at a macro level, I would make these observations that I'm seeing these individuals and saying, how do we have this show up in our hooks? How do we have this show up in the leads for our sales copy, right? The hooks would be like the headlines and the big ideas and the angles that you're working, the positions you take. The leads are how you grab people in once they hear about it and suck them in to get their attention. How do we put these in the offers so people could understand at a glance how incredible this is, because we're speaking to this deeper version of that person. And so we're constantly iterating and we're constantly adjusting based upon this real-time feedback loop that we're getting from our marketplace. And that's really exciting. I'll give you a huge insight. And nobody will, it's amazing because I've said this before, but people don't quite get it. In the business space, everybody says how to be a multimillionaire, how to make 7 figures, how to make $100,000 in 6 months, blah, 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 blah. Big numbers, right? We've discovered that most people would rather make an almost completely risk-free $2,000 to $3,000 a month than to take a big risk and make $10,000 to $20,000 a month. So this is a very powerful insight because everybody's selling the get rich or die trying kind of model. And we're showing this. Here's how you here's how you get some breathing room in your finances.
Right.
That's the key insight. I know a majority of my audience, that's what they really want. They want just a little bit more breathing room. Now, here's where marketing gets complicated, as it always does. I can't just say that to them. Just like, are you single, Fong?
No.
Okay, you're married, right?
Yep.
Okay, so when you first met your wife, you probably liked her a lot. Did you know right away that you liked her?
Yeah.
Did you walk up to her and say, "I like you. I want to marry you one day," right?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. You probably played it cool. You're like, I want to get to know this person a little bit. There's things about me I don't want them to know yet. Right? And so there's context. There's a dance that you play. And the same thing is true with all of marketing. It's like, I can't come right out and tell the audience that. And if I did, they would reject it because I'm pushing it on them. Right. But if I understand their deeper desires, I can construe a communication framework that shows them, here's the possibility. It's certainly, you're certainly capable, if you really go in on this, to have this big, large windfall that could occur. But while you're shooting for that, if you miss it, here's how you're always safe and better than you were when you started. And we're one of the few people in our market that can communicate with that framework, and that's how we win. And I first discovered that working with these audiences. I have discovered that for most of them, here's the thing, an object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion, right? We just got to get them from step 0 to step 1. I just got to create movement, because if I can create movement, then they can create momentum. But what everybody's doing is trying to sell momentum before there's movement. So everybody's showing them all the things that they can do, but they're not helping them just do a thing to move one step forward today. So here's a fundamental truth that I know to be a fact. Here's why most people that don't do exercise programs don't start. So say you hear all the benefits and the virtues of yoga, and yoga is truly one of the greatest things that most of us can do. But here's the problem. You can't book a 5-minute yoga class, right? Yoga classes typically start at 60 minutes. So your off state is 0 minutes. Mm-hmm. Your initial on state in this situation is 60 minutes. That's too big of a leap for most people. The best thing you could do is, if you're not exercising right now, is to run a 5-minute program, because your off state from 0 to 5 minutes is not a big of a leap. And guess what happens when you do 5 minutes? You start to build the habit. You start to build the routine. So 5 can become 10, 10 can become 15, 15 can become 30, 30 can become 60. If you somehow miraculously go from 0 to 60, here's what happens. When you're done, you feel miserable. So you say, what the hell? I'm supposed to exercise to feel better, and I feel worse. So now the second time I have to do it, because it's a thing you can't just do once, right? I am now associating all the bad stuff with the first time. Mm-hmm. But if I do 5 minutes and I'm like, man, I could have went longer, now I associate eagerness the second time. Now I'm looking forward to it because I didn't get as much satiation as I wanted. But in the first example, I got over-satiated. And so this is very interesting. So people just need to move a step forward in most things to get unstuck, and then they can take care of the rest of it. So a lot of what we do is help people just take a step forward, and then they feel comfortable, especially if they can take that step forward in a way that doesn't create harm or risk to them. And so these are all things that I've learned interacting with customers for thousands and thousands of hours. It's insane when you look back on it. And then these are the things that I try to invest in the communications I have going forward, in the positions I take, and the offers that I create, and the offers that I promote, and then the communication and how I promote those offers. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. Maybe that's a little too esoteric.
No, that's awesome. A lot of what you say has to do with the engagement with the clientele of the audience, reading their reactions, getting the feedback live. So for you, for somebody who's so good at the webinar space, do you like live sessions where you're talking to people face to face, or do you still like the webinar space?
I like one-to-many situations, partly because like I have massive ADHD. So 1-to-1 is too slow for me. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Well, no, like if you're on stage speaking to a live audience.
Yeah, so I like multiple people in an audience because I can read multiple people simultaneously. Webinars even better because I can get a chat going, and so I can see the chat. And I don't read them these days. I have my business partner; he filters that when we're on a sales webinar, and he feeds them to me. Here's the thing that is hard for people, especially when you look at the difference between sales and marketing. Sales is one-on-one. So if I'm talking to you one-on-one, I'm going to elicit what your needs, desires are, and what your limitations that you feel you have are, what your goals are, and then we're going to figure out through back and forth interaction if it makes sense or if it doesn't. In mass, you can't do that. You have to do research or understand your market ahead of time so you can communicate to the market. But here's what's really interesting. If I'm on a webinar and I say the following to try to help somebody and close them, I say, hey, listen, yeah, even if your time is tight, you're just going to have to figure out a way to get another hour or two out of the day. So if that means waking up a little bit earlier and staying up a little bit later, cutting out a couple of your favorite TV shows along the way and making other sacrifices, is it worth it? I think you know that it is. And so if you know that it's worth it, are you willing to do it? If you're willing to do it, with this extra hour or two that you're going to invest, what are you going to invest it in? Do you know anything better than what I'm showing you right now? Okay. If you do, go get that. If you don't, get this now. So if I close just that way, I will only sell the subsegment of the audience who that resonates with. And that may make sense for certain people. But imagine another person on that webinar who has a newborn at home, right? Telling them to get up an hour early and stay up an hour later is just, it's obtuse. It's dense. You are not in line with that person's reality at all because they're already completely lacking sleep, right? So we will sell one at the expense of the other. We will only capture a certain small segment of the market. And so what I'm trying to do when I communicate in mass is communicate in ways to pick up all the sub segments without invalidating any of them. And that's an art. And that's what's really exciting about that. Here's the thing that I've learned that works the best is just pure empathy of feeling and understanding the challenges and issues that people face. I love looking at YouTube comments because you see somebody speaking. I saw a guy the other day, a big prominent podcaster, and he's like, this is my morning routine. And he wasn't like challenging anybody or accusing anybody of doing something wrong. He just laid it out. I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. And it was pretty intense. And it was very rigorous and very structured. And then I'm reading the comments, and these are fans of his, and they're like upset as if he personally attacked them. They're like, well, yeah, that's easy for you to do because you're single. Try having kids and do that. And then other people are like, geez, this just sounds like somebody else's one that you stole. And I'm like, Jesus, but I understand where it comes from, because when he says, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that, and the way that he was communicating it and framing that, it made them feel like if they didn't do what he was saying, that they were wrong and he was right. And I know that's not what he intended, but that's how it came across nonetheless. And so when I'm selling and I'm communicating, I have to be very aware and conscious of that. Otherwise, I'm only going to reach a small percentage of all that I could reach. And so this is why I like working with groups of people all at once, is because it really fine-tunes my ability to empower and to impact the audience that I have. And then that works whether I'm on a stage, whether I'm writing email, whether I'm creating product, or whether I'm selling product on a webinar, you know?
Does the blank screen on webinars tick you off? Because that's what lots of people do, right? They go onto a webinar, they turn their cameras off, and you don't know if they're there or not.
You know, it doesn't bother me. And in some ways, I loved when we started in webinars because you couldn't show your face. Technology wouldn't allow you to. It just didn't have the capacity to do that back in the day. So I came up in the world where you only had a slide deck, and that was it. And you lived and died based on the visuals that you could create in the tonality of your voice. So to me, it doesn't really matter. What I've discovered is the most useful thing that you can use in a webinar to influence the sell, besides the offer, is the information you provide on the webinar. And so that information is your most powerful leverage point. You want to let people know you're an authority. Yeah, you can do all the perceptive ways, right? Here's the famous people I've taken pictures with, right? Here are the articles written about me that I've appeared in these famous publications. Here are some of the results that I've had, blah, 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 right? You should do all of that. That's kind of important, right? But the most important way to demonstrate that you're an authority is to blow somebody's mind with the insights you can provide to them. And so that's why the information is so powerful. So you have that, your slides don't have to look that great. You have that, you don't have to look that great. You have that, you can make a lot of mistakes elsewhere. My goal with any webinar that I design is within 15 minutes, somebody says, oh my God, this is unlike any other webinar I've ever been to. I've listened to, 15 other speakers on this topic, and I've spent $1,500 and I've spent 15 hours. And in 15 minutes, you've given me more insight than the rest of them combined, right? That's what I'm always aiming for when I'm creating these webinars. And so that's how we use information as the biggest leverage point. Now, once you get good at that, once that becomes unconsciously competent, then you can feather in the rest. Right. Then you can say, okay, now we build a studio like the one that I'm in right now. Now we have really cool visuals. Now we optimize the more minor things, the 80% that only accounts for 20% of the result. Mm-hmm. But we should only do that after we first nail the 80%. Before we chop down the tree, let's get the sharpest axe, right? And the information is such a sharp axe when it comes to cutting through the resistance that your audience is going to have, or the skepticism that they're going to have towards you. And so that's why I think the right structure of communicating information is so neglected in webinars these days, and it's the most powerful thing if you can do it, but it's the hardest. And that's why if you can do it, it gives you an advantage. And if you can't do it, then you're going to have to make it up in some other way.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, this hour has gone by very, very fast, and you've just given so much great content, so much great value. Before I let you go, I got one more formal question for you. If you were on the world stage, en masse, lots of people listening, what is that one message that you want everybody to remember you for?
Yeah, it's a good one, right? So, and I don't have the answer to this yet, but at least I'm starting to ask the question. So I'm 40 now. So the first 40 years of my life, for the most part, up until about age 35, I chased success and accomplishment that if I just did X, or if I just achieved Y, then I would feel good. Then I would be okay. Then I would feel worthy. That's really ultimately what it was. I was always had this deep feeling of unworthiness. And I thought maybe if I achieve and succeed, that will somehow heal the wound of unworthiness. And it didn't. Okay. So 35 years, I chased that. Last 5 years, I've become more aware of that. So the next 40 years of my life, I want to invest in kind of refactoring my approach so I can still go out there and electrify the world and impact them and contribute, because I feel that's my mission is contribution, right? But how do I do that in a way where internally my worthiness can be measured by a different set of parameters? What's it require for me to feel worthy, to feel safe, to feel whole? And that helps me a lot because it protects me from doing things that are harmful to me. A lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, the ones that change the world the most often do so at their own personal expense. So they will harm and hurt themselves, and they will be destructive, but that's how they create the greatest breakthroughs and the most amazing things out there. But the cost, I feel, is too great. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm trying to do is find a way to contribute as best as I can. And part of that means I have to take care of myself, and I have to truly feel good with who I am. And even if I don't get the result, because it can be taken away from you just like that. Like we take for granted the preciousness of being alive in this current body, of what that looks like. So being also okay no matter what happens. So if I never achieve anything again, how can I still be okay? How can I still feel worthy? And that's the mission that I'm on now. Now, what I believe is going to happen, I'm not counting on it. I don't need it to happen. But what I would guess, if I had to bet, what happened is I'll probably be able to contribute more, right? Doesn't that make sense? Yep. And so for everybody listening here's what we see in social media for the most part, or here's what rises to the top and becomes top of mind. These very extreme dichotomies, like you're either winning or you're losing. You're either happy or you're sad. You're either successful or you're a failure. And so that's what you're going to see rise to the top. The people that are going to be most popular in the productivity space, or the people that are most popular in the entrepreneur space, are the people that are also the most unbalanced. the most extreme,
Mhm.
because people can understand extremes. Oh yeah, I just got to work really hard. I just got to grind it. I just got to outwork my competition. I just got to have this hustle and just go as hard as I possibly can attitude. And you see things like that. And I'm here to suggest that while you can learn a lot for those people, right? They might not have all the answers. They may only have a few of the answers. And so you should always check in with your own and try to figure out what your own quests are so you can use inspiration from others, but be very careful if you allow anybody, including me, to define what your worthiness and what your value should be. And I think we lose a lot of that, especially today in social media. We lose a lot of that nuance and that finer point. So, do you have kids, Fong?
Yep.
Yeah. How many kids you have?
Soon to be 2.
Okay. Soon to be 2. Ooh, that's exciting point in your life, right? Whether your kid is a multimillionaire or just works at Starbucks, would that change how much you would love them?
Probably not.
Probably not. I like I say probably not, right? I'm guessing it wouldn't at all, right? And I have kids. I have 2 as well. And it wouldn't change. Regardless of what they accomplish in life, it would not change how much I love them one bit. So why would it change for me to love myself like that?
Mm-hmm.
So how can I love myself independent of any external accomplishment? And that's really what I'm looking for. And I've been doing some of that. It's been 5 years. I'm a slow learner in some things, man. And I'm learning that. And now I can have that, though, when I communicate to people. I feel like I can help people even more in that regard. And so what I'm suggesting everybody else out there is there's a balance. Like, we all try to achieve this thing where, because we see these extremes and we want to emulate them. But man, my biggest piece of evidence to be cautionary towards that is watch The Last Dance, the documentary with Michael Jordan, greatest NBA basketball player of all time. Tell me what you feel his insides are like. You tell me if he landed in a spot that he was happy. So are you willing to be the best if it means sacrificing feeling okay inside? My answer to that before was I didn't even think about it. My answer to that now is no. I want to contribute as best as I can, without sacrificing who I am as a person along the way. And so I can learn a lot, and I can apply, and I can be on that edge. I have to push, right? But I'm just more conscious and aware of that. And hopefully other people can see that too, because, I've accomplished so many amazing things, but I did so at great cost. I feel like now I could accomplish even more and not have to risk as much or cost myself as much. And that's exciting to me. So that's what my next 40 years are about. But I'm still working on that messaging. As you notice, it's not as sharp and refined as some of the messaging I gave you earlier.
Oh, that's awesome. It's good to see that you got stuff going on, and you have lots of thoughts to kind of work out there. So that's great to know. Quick 5 questions before you go. If you were stranded on a deserted island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence.
Oh, that's a good one. One food to eat for the rest of my life, no consequence. Probably rice.
Hollywood calls and go, "Hey, Jason, we want to do a biopic on you. Who would you like to be casted to play you?"
Oh man, who would I like to be? Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher shows up at your door and go, "Hey, I got casted to play you. Let's hang out. Show me the best day." So what's that best day that you would take him out for, and what are you guys going to be doing?
Yeah, so we go back to Iowa because we're both from Iowa. We'd hang out there because I actually when I moved from Iowa to LA now, I was about 20 minutes away from where he went to high school. So people used to say I kind of look like him maybe when I was younger, not Dallas, but he's an Iowa boy. So I'm like, let's go back to Iowa, man. We'll go hang out there. That'll be the day.
If you get to play a cameo in any cinematic universe that you can choose from, which one would you like to be plopped into?
Well, I'm not up to date on the current stuff that's going on right now, but if I could go back in time and be in like a True Detective or like a Breaking Bad or The Wire, like those types of TV shows, I would love to be a cameo in one of those.
Would it matter if you're the person who's dead on the street or the person that finds the dead person on the street?
Doesn't matter. I just want to be in it.
Awesome. And my final question is, what is success like? Before that, give me a number from 1 to 4.
Say the question again.
Just give me a number from 1 to 4.
3.
1, 2, 3. So if you had to compare success to a music box, how would you use a music box as a metaphor for success?
Ooh, that's a good one. So there are not many notes in music, right? And in scales, there's even less notes. So it's like 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That makes up a majority of music. So you can create an infinite variety of beautiful music from just 7 notes. So success to me is taking these very basic things that are obvious and self-evident, these fundamental foundational building blocks, and how do we weave them together and construct a beautiful piece of music? Because we have an infinite variety of ways that we can be creative with them. So out of the few, it's the infinite and the beauty of the purity of those few key elements. Let's play them in new and unique and exciting ways. That's success to me.
Awesome. So that's how success is like a music box. If anybody wants to reach out to you, get your book, know more about your podcast, what's the best way?
Yeah, the book for sure. One to Many. It's on Amazon. It's the only book I've written so far. Working on a new one, but who knows how long that'll take. So go to One to Many. And if you want to follow me on social media, like all the accomplishments you rattled off at the beginning, Fong, they were done with 0 social media presence. It's only been within the last year that I decided I'm like, I need to be more out there. So YouTube is my jam. That's what I'm trying to build up right now. I'm learning so much. It's so exciting. And so if you want to catch me on YouTube and subscribe, that would make me very happy. So get the book, first of all. And then if you have a little extra left over in the gas tank, go to YouTube and subscribe.
Awesome. Any last words from you?
There is so much opportunity out there for you. And it doesn't matter where you're at right now. Every position has it within its strengths. So if you're new, you have the strength of a fresh set of eyes. You're not jaded and cynical. You're willing to go where the established won't go, right? If you lack experience, then cool, you can document your journey so you can be more in line with the person who's one step behind you than I can be, right? Everybody has some sort of strength that can be leveraged. And so find that strength and leverage it. Start small like I did, selling $4 ebooks and writing articles for other people. Get the momentum, and then you will be amazed. That will take you further than you could ever dream or conceive right now. So get going, get momentum, and then have fun along the way.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this a lot. I'm sure a lot of people out there has enjoyed this. You've given a lot of great content, a lot of great value there. Make sure everybody out there go pick up his book. Also subscribe to his YouTube. Lots of great content there as well. Awesome podcast. It's been an honor having you here. I gotta say, one of the most easiest interviews I've ever done because you just share. You just had a lot of great information to share. So thank you very much for that. For everybody, he is Jason. My name is Fong. Until next time. Today is the day to lock your peak potential. We'll see you later.